I don't pick up hitchhikers. I want to make that clear before I tell you what happened, because I need you to understand that what I did that night was completely out of character for me. It was November, late. I was driving back from my sister's wedding, alone on an empty highway. There was rain hitting the windshield so hard I could barely see the road. I had the radio on just to feel less alone. I was somewhere outside Millfield when I saw him. A man on the side of the road. No car, no umbrella. Just standing there in the pouring rain with his thumb out. I kept driving. Then, 5 minutes later, I pulled over. I can't explain why. Something just made me stop, like my hands turned the wheel on their own. He walked to the car slowly, opened the passenger door, got in without saying a word. He was soaked through, maybe 40 years old, grey jacket, dark eyes. He smelled like rain and something else I couldn't name. "Where are you headed?" I asked. He looked straight ahead at the road. "Same place as you," he said. I told myself that was a normal answer, and we drove in silence for about 20 minutes. I turned the radio on, static. I just turned it off. I glanced over at him. He was staring out of the side window. His reflection in the glass was facing me. I looked again. His body was turned away, looking out of the window, but his reflection was looking directly at me, smiling. I gripped the wheel and told myself it was the rain, the darkness, my tired eyes. I focused on the road and didn't look at him again. An hour later, I needed gas. I pulled into a small station off the highway, single pump, flickering light. "I'm stopping for gas," I said. He nodded slowly. I got out. The rain had stopped. Everything was quiet. I pumped the gas and looked through the windshield at him. He was sitting perfectly still, just staring straight ahead. Then my phone rang. My sister. "Are you okay?" she asked. "Fine, just stopped for gas." "Are you alone?" Strange question. "I picked up a hitchhiker. He's in the car." There was a long silence. "Well, what did he look like?" The voice had changed. Careful, slow. "Grey jacket, dark eyes, maybe 40. "Walk away from the car," she said. "What?" "Right now, walk away from the car." I moved to the edge of the lot. "There was an accident," she said, "on Route 9 tonight around 8 p.m. A man was hit by a car. He was walking on the side of the road, grey jacket, dark eyes." I couldn't speak. "They couldn't identify him," she said quietly. "He didn't make it." I looked at my car. He was still there, sitting in the passenger seat, still as stone. "That's not possible," I whispered. "He's in my car right now. He spoke to me." "What did he say?" She said. I thought about it. Only two things the whole drive. "Same place as you," I said slowly. She went quiet for a long time. "Get back in the car," she said. "Drive to the nearest town. Don't talk to him. Don't look at him. And whatever you do, don't ask him where he's going." I walked back to the car, sat down, started the engine. He didn't move, didn't acknowledge me at all. 20 minutes of silence, the longest of my life. Then I saw the lights of a town ahead. I heard his voice, quiet, calm. "You can let me out here." I stopped the car. He opened the door, got out, didn't look back. I watched him in the mirror. He walked down the street and turned the corner. I waited 2 minutes, then I drove to the corner and looked. The street was empty. No footprints in the wet pavement. Nothing, like he had never existed. I called my sister back. "He's gone," I said. "Just disappeared around the corner." She was quiet for a moment. "Route 9 goes through Millfield," she said. "That's where he was from. That's where they're going to bury him." He didn't give him a ride. He gave him a way home. I still drive that highway sometimes. I always check the passenger seat before I get in. I never pick up hitchhikers. But sometimes, late at night when the rain is heavy and the road is empty, I see someone on the side of the road standing very still, thumb out. And I think about what my sister said. And I wonder how many of them are still trying to get there. I am a healthcare professional with a natural sensitivity to spiritual energy, though I don't usually rely much on technical equipment. Last month, my girlfriend and I were watching American Horror Story and got a sudden bite to take a spontaneous weekend trip to explore the paranormal. We decided to book a room at the historic Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona. What followed was a series of intense, unexplainable events that left us completely shaken, and I'm looking for feedback from the community on what we experienced. So the warnings took place between April 18th and 19th, 2026. Now our journey felt heavily resisted from the very beginning. Looking back, I completely ignored my intuition. The universe was flashing massive warning signs to stay away. The booking roadblocks we originally booked through Priceline. The next morning, the hotel called us directly, stating they were overbooked and couldn't honour the room. Though they offered a larger room at a higher rate, we accepted, but trying to cancel the original Priceline reservation turned into hours of frustrating customer service battles that almost made us call off the trip entirely. And there was the welcome song. After hours of fighting to get it sorted, we finally hit the road. The exact moment we drove across the town line into Bisbee, our car radio randomly switched on its own to a strange, old-timey vintage station. The song immediately came on about a woman hanging herself. That was our welcome to the town. And when we finally showed up at the hotel, the front desk told us our reservation was completely cancelled and there was no room for us. We explained that we had spoken to the manager personally, and by pure luck, the manager was on her way out the door and was flagged down, and at the last second to manually confirm our stay. We finally unlocked the door to room 209. It was Mad Hatter weekend in Bisbee, so the town was filled with surreal, chaotic energy and people walking around in bizarre costumes waiting for a mock beheading. We headed out into the town, stopping at the Grand Bisbee Hotel bar for drinks, and then went down the street for more drinks and some wings. We met some interesting people, and the night continued in a bit of a blur. On our way back to the hotel, feeling good, my girlfriend brought up the idea of doing a seance in our room. I thought it was a great idea, and we started walking back. Right across the street from the hotel, my girlfriend suddenly tripped and fell hard onto the pavement. A police officer sitting next to his cruiser immediately tried to stop me from walking across, as I tried to process what was happening and engage with someone walking towards me in a stupor. When I got to her, the sight was overwhelming. She was crying and bruised, bleeding from her upper lip, and her front teeth were chipped from hitting the street. The intense guilt of failing to be the protector I pride myself on, mixed with the shock of the situation, turned into a massive, burning internal anger. We got back to the room. She didn't want medical help, but she was crying, exhausted, and just wanted to leave. Because we'd been drinking, we had to wait for it to wear off. She eventually fell asleep. Furious and restless, I went out into the hotel halls alone. I was so upset by the situation that I started openly cursing and yelling out loud at the spirits, daring them to try and do something. I went floor by floor, looking to feel frightened because I felt so intensely strong and confrontational. What completely surprised me was that even though the hotel was completely packed that weekend, absolutely no one opened a door or came out to see what the noise was while I was yelling in the halls. I made my way down to the bottom floor, which was completely dark and filled with old furniture. And as I stood there, I heard a faint, slight moaning sound. Now at first, my logical brain tried to process it, assuming it was just guests getting busy in a nearby room. But as I moved towards the front doors, the moaning sound actively changed directions and started getting closer to me. And suddenly, an intense, overwhelming wave of panic swarmed my entire body. My survival instinct kicked in, screaming at me that I needed to get back upstairs immediately. I felt as if something had literally run right up on me. I ran up to the second floor and sat down in the well-lit hallway to try and process what had just happened. While I was sitting there, a gentleman walked right past me without acknowledging my presence at all. A few minutes later, a woman walked past and went up to the next level, also completely failing to notice me sitting right there in the open. I finally went back into the hotel room, checked on my girlfriend, and fell asleep. And when we woke up the next morning, we were jarred to find that a little dresser in our room had been completely moved and opened while we slept. But the final chill hit us as we packed up our things to check out. As I looked around the ground floor where I'd been chased by the sound the night before, I realised the fact that blew my logical processing apart. There are no guest rooms on the bottom floor. It is strictly the empty front desk lobby, old furniture, and the saloon. The sound hadn't been a guest next door. It was entirely displaced in an empty, dark hall. Has anyone else stayed in room 209 at the Copper Queen or experienced auditory anomalies on the ground floor late at night? Is it common in heavily active haunted locations for loud physical noises like yelling in the hallways to be seemingly muffled or ignored by a packed house of guests? It felt as if my voice was isolated. When a paranormal trip faces massive environmental resistance before you even arrive, is that typically seen as a warning to stay away, or a sign that you were walking into a highly active environment? For those who are sensitive, does experiencing a sudden physical trauma or intense emotional shock, like an accident, drastically amplify the energy or accessibility of a haunted space? So I first got sleep paralysis when I was 17 years old, and I remember it very vividly. I don't think I'll ever forget it because it was so surreal to me. It happened that summer of my senior year of high school. I still remember waking up in the middle of the night, not being able to move. I remember being so confused. I tried to get up, but my body was stiff, paralysed. I tried to move my arms and legs, and they just wouldn't work. Then I started panicking, but believing it's all a bad dream. So I think that, but I'm really awake, so it's perceived as a never-ending nightmare. At the same time, I tried screaming, and Guess for who? Yeah, Big Mama's boy here. I yelled for help, and all that came out was weird, scary mumbling sounds, like my mouth had been sawn or stapled together. I felt a very heavy presence, a weight on my body. I was cold and sweaty, and yet the temperature in the room felt dense, hot, almost like a sauna. I could feel the cold sweat behind my ears pressing on the pillow. I could hear a distorted sound of like a ringing fan slowly spinning. My best guess, my ears had popped. I remember I tried to crawl away in a paralysed, stiff position. I felt numb and tingling like when your arm falls asleep. It was such a weird place to be, both physically and psychologically, because it was as if my mind couldn't keep up with my consciousness. Then what happened next is something I will never forget. The experience was out of this world. As I lay there, unable to move, with my mumbling sounds coming out of my mouth, I felt like I was being lifted, suspended into the air above my body in bed. The sensation I got all around my body and stomach was that feeling of being scared of heights. That's the best way I can describe it. What happened next? I was now looking at myself from above. I could see myself laying in bed. I thought I had died. It was very strange seeing myself just laying there, as if it was third-person view. It was like watching your kill cam in a video game. I was in one spot physically, but my mind was in two places. I don't know. Anyways, while being suspended near the ceiling of my room, I travelled down the hall to the kitchen. I don't know how or why, and I remember being suspended in the middle of the kitchen ceiling for what felt like forever. Then I travelled back into my body, and as I returned to my body, I could hear distorted voices, almost like whispers, very deep and horrifying. As I opened my eyes into reality, waking up, I could hear my mother calling me as I lay in bed. I got up and was very weirded out by what had happened. I couldn't understand how she was there because I was alone not so long ago. I guess this whole time, while I was in my sleep paralysis, I had been mumbling for help, and she heard and got very worried and went to check on me. That human intervention certainly helped. Anyways, what followed after was just bad for me. This happened 3 nights in a row. The second and third time I was not able to get out of my body, but I still got that creepy sleep paralysis sensation of the living nightmare. Those nights to me felt like they were in a loop, repeating what had happened the night before. It got bad. I was scared to go to sleep. I felt like if I fell asleep, it would just restart over and over again. The lack of sleep that followed also created insomnia. I had the idea that I wouldn't get those nightmares if I didn't sleep long, so I tried sleeping less. And that started messing with my school stuff. I stopped skateboarding and I was uninterested in all my hobbies. I couldn't really concentrate. It's like I wasn't myself, as if I was possessed or taken over by something. I became obsessed with that experience. It pushed the boundaries of wonder. I believe at some point I lost that touch with reality. I started thinking I got some kind of ability that others didn't. I started isolating myself because whenever someone asked what's up, I'd bring it up because that was on my mind the whole time. This experience opened my mind to look into lucid dreaming, astral projection, parallel universes, alternate realities, spirituality, history, and to learn about space and time, mathematics, geometry and physics, even biology, trying to understand the nervous system and the brain and how all of this is connected, searching for that key. I know it's all because of this experience I was able to see. I overthought it, I gave into it. I know it drastically shaped my life, but I have to come to terms with it. At last, the mystery of the airship has been solved. No longer need people trouble in their shoes at what has been supposed by many to be the supernatural. No longer need astronomers sweep the star-studded expanses in search of the strange visitor. No longer need romancers tell of aeroplanes and condensing engines of wonderful motive power. The mystery has been solved, and for a time, at least, people will cease to wonder. The man who offers the solution to this problem that has been the cause of worry and work on the part of many of the inhabitants of this and other states is Joseph Jocelyn. Mr. Jocelyn has, for the past 2 weeks, been a passenger on board the Aerial Wonder, and, despite his disinclination at first to talk on the subject, he told a Globe Democrat representative last night, after a great deal of persuasion, about his strange experience. Owing to Mr. Jocelyn's nervousness, due to his extended flight above the earth, he is unable to talk as well as he can when his normal condition. But what he does say throws new light on aerial navigation and discloses to the public the 8th wonder of the world. It was Sunday, April the 4th, that Mr. Jocelyn left his home, 1747 Mississippi Avenue, according to his story, with the intention of taking a walk through Forest Park. He reached the park, he says, about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and a half an hour later was walking along Skinker Road when he suddenly felt a strange sensation. It was as though 1,000 needles were sticking into him, Mr. Jocelyn says, and he fell flat on his back. So excruciating was the pain. In a few minutes, the sensation ceased, and the prostrate man arose. As he opened his eyes, which for some inexplicable reason had been involuntarily closed while the shock lasted, he saw a wonderful creature a short distance away, lying on the ground. It was an enormous animal of curious shape, unlike any Mr. Jocelyn had ever seen or heard of before, albeit he is an extensive reader. The only animal he can compare it at all is a Chinese dragon. It was about 100 foot long and very broad, with a dull red colour and had great wings, shaped like a bat's. Its head was out of proportion to its body, and it had 6 eyes, 2 of which were white, 2 green, and 2 red. The mouth was enormous, and above the black nostrils of the creature, huge horns sprang up. But most wonderful of all, Mr. Jocelyn says, were the creatures which were running about on top of this monstrosity. They were 2-legged, but shorter than the average man, while their skin was a deep red colour, like that of the animal they were on. Their small heads were black, and they seemed to have no eyes. Although they copied Mr. Jocelyn at once, one of them, leaping nimbly down, advanced toward him and beckoned Mr. Jocelyn, seemed hypnotised, and followed him. The creature in front retreated into the back of the animal, and against his will, Mr. Jocelyn was compelled to climb on the back of this great dragon. Then one of the strange creatures seemed to give a signal, and at once the animal spread its huge wings and soared upward, leaving Forest Park far behind. For nearly 3 weeks, Mr. Jocelyn was a prisoner on board the strange craft, and his sufferings were horrible, according to his story. He was frequently tortured by them, but was unable to resist because of their numbers. He thinks there were at least 1,000 of them, and they used to burn him with their hands, which were red hot. Mr. Jocelyn tells such about his travels and the strange sights he saw, but he does not know how he returned to Earth. The first thing he knew was when he was awakened after an unconscious spell and found himself at the city hospital in the 9th ward. His case is diagnosed as alcoholism. Now, there is a decent chance this newspaper story is a joke due to Jocelyn's experience was diagnosed as alcoholism, but the parallels with modern UFO abduction stories that would happen decades later are incredibly interesting. If it is satire, it does make you wonder where the ideas used originate